There comes a time in life where you realize that what you carry is heavier than what you're walking into. And it's not the future isn't beautiful. It is. It's not that purpose isn't powerful. It is. But sometimes we can't fully step into that next chapter because we're dragging things that don't belong anymore. It's like trying to run a race with weights on your ankles. You can move, but you'll never go as far or as fast as you could. So today I want to talk about release, about what needs to be dropped, surrendered, left behind, so that you can live the life God intended for you. Not the life fear allows, not the life pain shaped, but the one purpose designed. First, let go of the need for approval. We live in a culture that makes you feel like every move you make has to be co-signed by the opinions of others. But can I tell you something? Some of the most powerful breakthroughs happen in silence, in isolation, when no one is clapping and no one is watching. If you're constantly bending who you are just to be accepted, you'll never know the strength of your own authenticity. Let it go. You are not called to be liked. You are called to be impactful. And the most impactful people are often misunderstood at first. Stop shrinking your dreams to fit into people's comfort zones. Then release the pain of your past. I know it hurt. I know it broke something in you. And I would never dishonor your story by pretending it didn't matter. But I will challenge you. Don't let what broke you define you. You are not the trauma, not the betrayal, not the mistake. You are the survivor. You are the one who kept showing up. So let go of rehearsing the wounds over and over until they become the identity you wear. You can honor your journey without living in the shadows of what once was. Let healing have space to work. Let God rebuild from the ruins. You're not starting over, you're starting wiser. Next, release toxic relationships. This one isn't easy because some of the people we hold on to the longest are the ones we've known the longest. But time invested does not always mean value returned, and some connections are not life-giving. They are life-draining. If every conversation leaves you second-guessing yourself, if you find yourself dimming your light to keep someone else comfortable, it's time to let go. You deserve relationships that nurture, not ones that manipulate. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away, not out of pride, but out of peace. Let go of perfectionism, that constant voice telling you it has to be flawless before it's faithful. Let go of the unrealistic standards that keep you procrastinating instead of progressing. God never asked for perfection. He asked for obedience, and obedience is messy. It's trying, failing, learning, growing. The version of you that changes the world won't be the polished version. It'll be the real one. The one that showed up scared but still showed up. The one who didn't have it all together but trusted anyway. That's where the power lies, in authenticity and vulnerability and progress over perfection. Release comparison. You'll never find peace if your eyes are constantly on someone else's lane. Their path is not your path. Their blessing is not your measurement. Their timing is not your delay. God is not late. He's intentional. Every detour, every pause, every not yet was shaping something deeper in you, something they may not see, but heaven knows. Don't despise your process because someone else looks further. What they have might be louder, but what you're building has roots, and things with roots last longer than things with hype. Let go of unforgiveness, not for their sake, but for yours. Carrying that bitterness around only poisons you, not them. You keep waiting on an apology, but peace is not found in their words. It's found in your release. Let it go. Not because they deserved it, but because you deserve freedom. Because every time you rehearse what they did, you hand them power, and you've got places to go that require all of your strength, not some of it tied up in old wounds. Free your forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It means liberation. Release the fear of failure. It's okay to fall. It's okay to not get it right the first time. Success is not about never missing. It's about never quitting. Failure is not the end. It's a part of the journey. Some of the most transformative moments in life come from what didn't work because they force us to dig deeper, to learn, to pivot. Don't let fear paralyze your purpose. You were built for resilience. You were made to rise. Take the step, even if your voice shakes, even if your knees tremble. Faith isn't fearless. It's choosing movement despite the fear. Let go of overthinking. You can't strategize every detail of your destiny. Some things only make sense in hindsight. Some doors only open when you move forward. You've got to stop waiting for clarity and start walking with conviction. The enemy of progress is paralysis, and paralysis often wears the mask of just thinking it through. Let faith be your logic, trust the nudge. Follow the peace. You won't have all the answers before you move, but you will gain insight as you go. God honors motion. Heaven responds to faith, not to fear disguised as planning. And finally, let go of the identity that was shaped by survival. I know life made you tough. You had to build walls to protect yourself. You had to become strong when everything around you was falling apart. But now you're safe. Now you're healing. And the armor you built to endure the storm is too heavy for the season of growth. You don't have to always be on guard. You don't have to always be in defense mode. It's okay to be soft again, to feel, to open, to trust. Survival was necessary then, but now it's time to live. You are more than what had to go through. You are more than who you had to become to get by. You can shed the armor. You can breathe again. Everything you're holding on to has a weight, and everything you release creates space. Space for joy, space for clarity, space for peace, space for purpose. It's not that you need to become someone else. It's that you need to let go of everything that isn't truly you. And as you release, you rise, not because you added something, but because you let go, and what's left, that's your power. That's your truth. That's where your transformation begins. There is something undeniably powerful about recognizing that growth doesn't come from addition, but from subtraction. We spend so much of our lives reaching, striving, and collecting things we think we need, people, titles, accomplishments, validations, only to find ourselves overwhelmed, burdened, and disconnected from the core of who we really are. And the truth is, more isn't always better. Sometimes what your soul really needs is space. Space to breathe, space to heal, space to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. And that space only comes when you're willing to let go. Letting go isn't always dramatic. It's not always this grand declaration or loud exit. Sometimes letting go looks like no longer picking up the phone for that person who only calls to dump negativity. Sometimes it looks like walking away from conversations that leave you drained instead of fueled. Sometimes it means silencing the voice in your own head that tells you you're not enough unless you're constantly performing. Growth doesn't scream for attention. It's quiet. It's intentional. It happens when you decide to stop watering what's been dead for a long time. Letting go of emotional baggage is not weakness. It is wisdom. You cannot grow in an environment that is suffocating you. You cannot rise when you are buried under the weight of unresolved pain. There are people walking around with brilliance inside them, vision burning in their spirit, but it can't move because it's trapped beneath bitterness, insecurity, unforgiveness, and the constant need to prove something. The more you hold on to, the harder it becomes to discern what's real. You start reacting to life from a place of fear instead of faith, and your vision becomes clouded. But the moment you release, something shifts, not externally, but internally. You begin to hear your own voice again. You begin to feel lightness, even when nothing outside of you has changed. Some of us are addicted to the weight. We've carried it for so long. We think it's part of who we are, but your struggle is not your identity. What happened to you is part of your story, but it is not the definition of your future. The pain that shaped you does not have the right to name you. And yes, healing hurts. Yes, releasing old patterns and relationships that you thought were permanent is painful. But staying stuck is even more costly, because every day you delay your healing, you delay your breakthrough, you delay your next level, and you rob yourself of the joy that was always meant for you. When you let go of what doesn't serve you, you begin to see just how much of your life was consumed by trying to manage things that were never yours to carry. You stop overextending yourself to fit into places that don't honor you. You stop explaining your worth to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. And you stop begging for peace in places where God already told you to leave. Letting go is not giving up. It's growing up. It's choosing yourself. It's choosing healing. It's choosing purpose over patterns. We don't often realize how tightly we hold on to pain. We think that by holding on to it, we protect ourselves. We think that by never forgetting what they did, we stay in control. But that's a lie. Holding on doesn't make you strong. It makes you stuck. What makes you strong is facing the pain, grieving what you lost, learning the lesson, and then letting it go so it no longer holds authority over your future. Your growth is not tied to who hurt you, how long it took, or how badly they broke you. Your growth is tied to what you do now with what's in your hands. And yes, letting go requires faith, because when you release something, there's a moment where you feel empty before you feel free. That silence between what was and what will be is scary. But it's in that space that transformation happens. You start hearing God more clearly. You start seeing yourself not through the lens of pain, but through the lens of purpose. You stop chasing healing through validation, and you start healing from within. You stop striving and you start aligning. You stop holding on for dear life. And you start living with open hands, trusting that anything meant for you will remain, and anything not meant for you will be replaced with something better. Letting go teaches you that your peace is more valuable than your past, that your destiny is bigger than your comfort zone, that your worth doesn't shrink because someone else couldn't see it, and that sometimes elevation requires separation, not because you're better than anyone else, but because you're becoming someone who cannot afford to be entangled in distractions anymore. You're growing into a version of yourself that can no longer fit into who you used to be. So you stop waiting for the perfect time and you start choosing healing now. You stop asking who will walk with you and you start asking who you're becoming. Because when you begin to let go, you don't just lose things, you gain you. The real you, the healed you, the empowered you, the free you, the you who's no longer carrying things that were never yours in the first place. Freedom doesn't always look like breaking chains or running through open fields. Sometimes freedom looks like silence. It looks like blocking a number you used to answer out of obligation. It looks like saying no without apologizing. It looks like choosing peace over people pleasing. Be closed doors, because there comes a point in your journey where you realize that not everyone is meant to walk with you, and that's not arrogance, that's awareness. Some relationships aren't toxic because the people are evil. Sometimes they're toxic because they don't align with who you're becoming. You're evolving, and not everyone is supposed to have front row access to that transformation. The truth is, boundaries are not walls, they are bridges to peace. When you start creating boundaries, you're not being selfish, you're being a steward of your mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. You can love someone and still say, I can't let you have this much power over my peace anymore. You can honor a connection for what it was while recognizing it no longer fits where you're going. You don't owe anyone endless access to your spirit just because you shared history. The version of you that tolerated everything was surviving, but the version of you that's emerging is thriving. And thriving requires protection. Sometimes the most dangerous connections are not the obvious ones, but the subtle ones. The ones that look good on paper, the ones that feel familiar, the ones that tell you just enough to keep you hoping they'll change. But if someone constantly makes you question your value, your voice, your worth, then that's not a relationship. That's a cycle. And you weren't created to live in cycles. You were made to grow, to stretch, to soar. But soaring requires space. You can't fly when you're tangled in the emotional webs of people who aren't invested in your healing. Freedom demands decisions. You can't be free while still begging to be chosen by people who only see your potential when it's convenient for them. You can't be free while performing to maintain relationships that are held together by your silence and their comfort. Real freedom asks hard questions. Who am I without their approval? What would I choose if I stopped shrinking? How much more would I become if I let this go? And the moment you start answering those questions truthfully, you start walking in power. Not the kind of power that controls others, but the kind of power that says, I choose me. There's a deep kind of healing that happens when you stop waiting for people to love you in a way they've never been capable of. You stop blaming them. You stop blaming yourself. You accept that some people can't go deep because they've never been deep with themselves. And that's not your responsibility to fix. It's not your job to carry the emotional weight of people who refuse to do their own work. You're not the savior. You're not the therapist. You're not the solution. You are a human being worthy of love, support, and reciprocity. And maybe you grew up believing that love meant sacrifice, even when it hurt. Maybe you learned early on to make yourself small to keep the peace. But peace that requires you to suppress yourself isn't peace. It's performance, and freedom doesn't live in performance. Freedom lives in truth. The truth that your voice matters. The truth that your boundaries are valid. The truth that being alone is better than being surrounded by people who make you feel lonely. The truth that letting go isn't loss. It's alignment. Sometimes people will call your growth distance. They'll say you've changed, that you're different, and they'll be right. You are different because growth changes you. Healing changes you. Getting to know yourself again changes you. And the people who love you in a healthy way won't be threatened by your evolution. They'll be inspired by it. But the ones who benefited from your lack of boundaries will try to make you feel guilty for finally having some. Don't let their discomfort make you doubt your decision. Peace often comes with resistance. You have the right to choose yourself without apology. You have the right to walk away from conversations that feel like emotional warfare. You have the right to build a life that feels safe, even if that means releasing people who've been in your life for years. Longevity doesn't equal loyalty. Familiarity doesn't mean alignment. Just because you've known someone a long time doesn't mean they're meant to go the long haul with you. Some relationships were seasonal, and when that season ends, you honor the moment and keep moving forward. There's a certain joy that comes from protecting your space. A joy that's not loud, not flashy, but deep. The kind of joy that meets you in the morning when you no longer wake up to emotional chaos. The kind of joy that helps you sleep peacefully because you're no longer managing other people's dysfunction. The kind of joy that shows up when you can finally hear your own thoughts, feel your own emotions, and make your own choices without fear. That is the joy of freedom. And freedom will always require boundaries. Freedom is not found in cutting people off recklessly. It's found in choosing wisely, in recognizing who adds value, who drains it, in being brave enough to say, this no longer works for me, even when it's hard. And the more you practice that courage, the more you'll find yourself surrounded by relationships that are nourishing, reciprocal, and whole because you've raised your standard. You've remembered your worth, and you've decided that freedom, peace, and purpose are no longer negotiable. Faith does not always begin with clarity. Sometimes it begins with confusion. Sometimes it begins with trembling hands and a heart full of questions. It begins in the middle of uncertainty, in the places where you feel unqualified, underprepared, and overwhelmed. And yet something inside you whispers, move anyway. That's the essence of real faith. It's not waiting for every answer to appear. It's trusting that even in the absence of certainty, there's a deeper certainty in the one who called you. It's choosing to believe that your steps are not random, that your journey is not a mistake, and that even your missteps are being used for your becoming. Too often we delay movement because we believe that purpose comes wrapped in clarity. We think we need the blueprint, the full picture, the roadmap before we begin. But purpose rarely announces itself in bright lights and loud signs. It often starts with a nudge, a whisper, a deep stirring that won't go away. And if we're waiting for everything to make sense before we act, we'll stay stuck in places that were only meant to be temporary. Growth doesn't happen in comfort. It happens when you're brave enough to step out, even if you don't know where it will lead. Overthinking can kill your calling. We sit and analyze every outcome, every potential failure, every opinion that might be formed. And while we're calculating the risk, we miss the opportunity. We pray for open doors, but never walk up to knock. We ask for signs, but ignore the nudges. We're waiting for the fear to go away, but faith was never designed to be fearless. It was designed to function in the middle of fear. You don't need to wait to feel ready to be used. You just need to be available because God can do more with your whys than he can with your hesitation. Faith teaches you to move when it's uncomfortable. It doesn't always come wrapped in peace right away. Sometimes it feels like you're being pulled into deep waters with no idea how to swim. But it's in that place that trust is built. It's in that space where your dependence shifts from your own strength to God's strength. It's where you stop trying to control everything and start releasing the outcome. And in that surrender, there is power because once you no longer need to know everything to move forward, nothing can stop you. We often confuse waiting on God with procrastinating and fear. Yes, there is wisdom in discernment. Yes, there are seasons where stillness is necessary, but there's also a danger in using delay as a disguise for disobedience. When God places something in your heart, a vision, a dream, a calling, it won't always come with perfect timing or flawless conditions. It might come while you're still broken. It might come while you're still healing. But faith says, I don't have to be perfect to begin. Faith says, I may be limping, but I'm still moving. Sometimes the enemy of your destiny is not the devil. It's your doubt, the voice in your head that says, what if I fail? What if they laugh? What if I'm not enough? But faith flips the script and asks, what if you fly? What if this works? What if this is the exact step that opens everything you've been praying for? You see, your destiny isn't waiting on the ideal moment. It's waiting on your obedience. It's waiting for you to say, Even though I don't know how this ends, I trust the one who started it. We all want certainty. We all want to know that if we take the leap, we'll land on solid ground. But the truth, growth always requires risk. There's always a level of vulnerability and faith. You're putting your heart on the line. You're trusting something beyond your logic, but that's what makes it powerful. That's what makes it real. Because when you finally do take the step and you see God meet you in that space, your faith isn't just theory anymore. It's your lived experience. It's your testimony. It's your strength. Every great move of purpose is marked by a moment of uncertainty. Abraham had to leave everything familiar. Moses had to speak despite his fear. Esther had to stand when silence would have been safer. And yet they moved. Not because they had all the answers, but because they trusted the one who did. You don't have to have the background, the degrees, or the accolades. You just have to have the faith to start, to trust that every small step is significant, that even when you feel like you're walking in the dark, God is still directing your path. Your calling is not waiting for you to be confident.